In Los Angeles, nothing is ever just what it looks like on the surface. A sunny street might have been the scene of a massacre 70 years ago. A Hollywood mansion could have doubled as a secret gambling den. And a department store? It might have been selling more than just perfume and handbags. That's what makes LA so endlessly fascinating and so incredibly dark, because this city is built on layers. Layers of glamour stacked on top of secrets. And right in the middle of it all was Bullocks Wilshire, one of the most beautiful and exclusive department stores in LA history. People remember it as a place where movie stars bought designer suits, but very few people know what else went on behind those velvet curtains. Because for decades, Bullocks Wilshire operated like a mask, polished on the outside, but hiding something deeply disturbing underneath. Let's go back to 1929, right before the Great Depression hit. That's when Bullocks Wilshire first opened its doors on Wilshire Boulevard. And back then, this wasn't just a store, this was an experience. The building itself was a towering Art Deco masterpiece, designed with gleaming copper spires, hand-painted ceilings, marble staircases, and gold elevators. It looked more like a cathedral than a shopping center. It had custom perfume stations, designer salons, and even a tea room where wealthy women would sip imported tea after spending thousands on a fur coat. Celebrities like Marlene Dietrich, Clark Gable, and Mae West were regulars. There were private rooms for fittings, private entrances so the press wouldn't see you, and personal assistants for the rich and powerful. Bullocks Wilshire wasn't just selling clothes, it was selling status, secrecy, and exclusivity. But behind all the glitz and elegance, something else was happening. Something that almost no one talked about publicly. See, in a city like LA, powerful people always need quiet places to meet, away from headlines, away from reporters, away from even their own staff. And Bullocks Wilshire offered exactly that. Discreet fitting rooms upstairs, back offices tucked into corners of the building, and an entire rear entry system built for privacy. Politicians, studio executives, police chiefs, and organized crime figures would regularly stop by, not just to shop, but to talk, to negotiate, to make things happen off the books. People started to notice that the real business wasn't happening at the perfume counter. It was happening in the dressing rooms upstairs. People walked in with briefcases and walked out with envelopes. No receipts, no witnesses, just whispers. And then there were the tunnels. Yeah, real tunnels. LA's underground tunnel system is one of the city's best-kept open secrets. They were built in the early 1900s, mostly for moving utility lines, delivery goods, and, during Prohibition, smuggling illegal alcohol. Some of those tunnels ran beneath banks, bars, and even department stores. Bullocks Wilshire was just a few blocks away from a known tunnel route, and rumors started to build that its basement connected to these underground passageways. Former employees would talk about large shipments arriving in the middle of the night, not through the front loading dock, but through the basement. Nobody ever saw what was inside the crates. Inventory lists never showed anything unusual, but the timing always lined up with missing goods, missing merchandise, and unexplainable accounting irregularities. Some people claimed stolen goods were being moved in and out through the tunnels. Others believed it went further, that evidence, people, or even bodies were occasionally moved through those same hidden shafts. The LAPD knew something was going on. That much is clear from the documents that came out years later. Internal memos from the late 1940s referenced Bullocks Wilshire directly, not accusing it of anything outright, but raising concerns. One memo mentioned frequent visits by known syndicate associates, while another noted that surveillance had been quietly requested around the back entrance of the store. But no arrests were made. No official investigation was ever launched. Why? Because the people involved were too powerful. Some were part of the LAPD itself. Others had deep connections to City Hall. Bullocks Wilshire was protected, not by guards, but by silence. If you knew, you knew. And if you asked questions, you were told to drop it. Or you just stopped getting callbacks from the department. And it didn't stop there. During the Red Scare of the 1950s, when the government was obsessed with rooting out so-called subversives, the FBI is believed to have used Bullocks Wilshire and other high-end LA institutions as informal listening posts, because that's where the powerful gathered. Movie producers, newspaper editors, politicians, they shopped there, they ate lunch there, and sometimes they talked too freely. Former sales clerks have since said they were instructed to pay attention to what customers said, especially if the conversations turned political. They were told not to interrupt, not to report to store management, but to quietly pass along notes to a certain office that didn't officially exist. It's never been proven, but there are plenty of people who believe Bullocks Wilshire was part of a wider Cold War surveillance network operating inside the city, a department store by day, an intelligence hub by night. Meanwhile, in the back rooms and stock floors of the store, another kind of darkness was unfolding, the kind that hides in plain sight. The workers who kept Bullocks Wilshire running, the tailors, the delivery crew, the janitorial staff, were often overworked, underpaid, and completely invisible. Most of them were immigrants or women of color, working long hours with no benefits. They weren't allowed to use the front elevator. They had to enter through a separate door. While customers lounged in silk chairs sipping champagne, these workers were hauling racks of clothing up steep service staircases. And some of them started to notice strange things. Shipments that didn't match the invoices. Items going missing, only to show up weeks later with different tags. Locked doors that were never supposed to be locked. And management that always had an excuse when someone asked. By the 1960s, the neighborhood was changing. LA's elite were no longer shopping on Wilshire. They were heading to Beverly Hills, to the new malls in the valley. Bullocks Wilshire started to feel like a relic. And with the customers gone, the secrets started to echo even louder. Employees talked about hearing footsteps in empty rooms. One guard reportedly quit after seeing what he described as someone in a suit walking through a locked wing at 3 a.m. But security footage showed nothing. Others said the elevators moved on their own at night. Whether it was ghosts, guilt, or just the creaking of an old building, people could feel the weight of everything that had happened inside those walls. Not just the glamour, but the deception. When the store finally shut down in 1993, it didn't get a proper funeral. There was no tribute, no big closing sale, just silence. The building was later taken over by Southwestern Law School, which did an incredible job restoring the Art Deco architecture. The building is protected now as a historical landmark, but walk through those restored halls and you'll still feel it. That chill in the air, that sense that something was buried there. Not just concrete and fashion, but secrets, the kind LA specializes in. So the next time someone tells you LA doesn't have history, show them a picture of Bullocks Wilshire and tell them the story about how a beautiful department store sold more than just clothes. It sold silence. It sold protection, and in the end, it became a monument to everything this city is made of, luxury on the surface and darkness underneath.